Okay, on to my third video today. I've got one oceanography, one biology under the belt. This one's going to be biology. This will be 2B, which is characteristics of water, which will lead into an activity we're going to do in class. Okay, water molecules are incredibly special. We have to have water. Water is the only substance that's found in all three phases on this planet. If it's liquid, we call it water. If it's solid, we call it ice. If it's vapor, we call it, or gas, we call it water vapor. The only two of those that are visible are liquid water and ice. So if you look up in the sky and you see a cloud, it's not water vapor. All that blue stuff in between the clouds is where the water vapor is sitting. That condensed water is either a liquid if the temperatures are above 32 Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius, and it's ice crystals if they're below either one of those temperatures. Okay, I call a water molecule, which is two hydrogen and an oxygen atom bonded together, sharing electrons. I call it a Mickey Mouse molecule, and I do that because if you take a look at the shape of the head and the shape of the two ears, it's very similar to the way the oxygen and hydrogen looks in a water molecule, being 140 degrees apart. They're not on opposite ends. It sort of looks like a Mickey Mouse. And we do have two hydrogens, and we have an oxygen. It does make a polar molecule with a positive end and a negative end, and that's caused because the electron around the hydrogen wants to have two electrons, and hydrogen basically says, oxygen, I will bond with you if you'll share one of your electrons with me, making me, I think I have two, and I will make you think you have 9, which will make you more happy. Oxygen wants to have 10 electrons. They both want to look like a noble gas. Hydrogen wants to look like helium. Oxygen wants to look like neon. So another hydrogen comes in, says the same thing. Oxygen now picks up 2 electrons from the hydrogen, thinking it has 10. Each hydrogen picks up an electron, shares the electron with the oxygen, making it think it has 2, and it fills up the valence or the outer level, electron level. And because of this, it makes a polar molecule. Because the electrons spend more time around the oxygen than they do around the hydrogen, it tends to make this the positive end and makes this the negative end. And because water is a bipolar molecule, it actually tends to stick to almost anything. It sticks to itself, which is called cohesion, forming water drops, and adhesion when it sticks to anything else, like it sticks to a spider web or sticks to a shower or sticks to you. The reason it does stick is that it forms hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are these little green lines, and you can see them. They go from the plus to the minus end, the plus end of one hydrogen to the minus end of the other. And they're all over the place, and they'll actually make a very strong bond. So those are the hydrogen bonds, and it's called cohesion. It really wants to stick with water more than it wants to stick with anything else. So the surface of the water has no water above it, so it spends more time with the water beside it, and that actually allows for a couple things. If you've ever seen a water strider, you can see it's depressing down in the water, but it doesn't have enough weight to break the hydrogen bonding. So we actually have, it's called surface tension. If you've ever done a dive off the pool, you want to actually go like fingers first. And if you try a belly flop on the water for a split second, it says, I'm not going to, no, you shall not pass. It's not going to let you in. And then eventually it realizes you're stronger or heavier than the hydrogen bonds holding the water together, and it will let you in. So it's called cohesion when water sticks to water. It's called adhesion when it sticks to anything else, like the water droplet sticking to this spider web or the water drop sticking to skin when you get out of the bath, a pool, or a shower. Water properties. Two of the properties we're going to talk about on this slide are expansion. Water is less dense. The molecules, if you take a look at gaseous water, they're all over the place. Liquid water, they're partially hydrogen bonded, and solid water totally hydrogen bonded. And then what happens is they actually sort of spread out when they get all these hydrogen bonds, and that makes ice less dense, which means ice floats in liquid water, 90% down, 10% up. There's not that much difference in density, but it's enough to allow it to float. This allows organisms to actually survive during the winter because the ice acts like a really good insulator. The air temperature will drop much lower than the water temperature, so as long as some of the water can stay as a liquid, things like goldfish can live in that pond, as long as they can withstand really low water temperatures like 35, 40 degrees. Tropical fish won't do this, but other fish could. And we do the same thing when we live in an igloo. Igloo actually keeps the colder air away from the inside, so you can use body heat or a small heater or fire to actually warm up the inside. So it actually makes an ice level, so you could block this off, have a smoke hole at the top, and have the heat in here. It will melt the ice, causing an ice inside, which will actually give you more insulation, as long as it doesn't get too hot. I mean, you're not making it 70 degrees inside of an igloo. It may be minus 40, and maybe it's only 40 degrees inside, so it's 80 degrees warmer than outside. It's still 40. You're not wearing shorts and t-shirt. You're actually still wearing clothes, but they don't have to be quite as strong as the ones outside. Capillary action, if you have a small tube, that surface tension, the water adhesion will actually rise up these tubes, and plants utilize this. If you've ever seen a piece of celery in colored water, I have tried this in class. I will try to show this to you again, but I can never get it to work out well. I'll show you a couple images which they use for carnations and roses, which is pretty cool. This allows water to carry up a plant from the roots all the way up to tree on the tallest trees possible, even 300-400 feet up in the air. And it's all going through these small little tubes inside the tree itself. And it is the cohesion of water molecules and the adhesion to the side of the tube. So as long as this tube is small enough, and you can see it's just a few molecules of water wide, it can actually move right up. Another thing we're going to talk about is surface tension, which I alluded to a couple slides ago, and that allows a water strider to actually sit on top of the water. You can do the same thing if you depress water. You can float paper clips on it, and we'll actually try to do this in the activity. Try to get a paper clip to float. If you push it down too hard, or you tip the tip too low, it'll break the surface tension and it goes right in. Water molecules stick together, it forms a film at the top. And again, that's the water molecules trying to stick to water, but at the surface there's no water above it, so they tend to stick with each other a lot stronger than the rest of the water. And this allows organisms to stand and walk on the water. Diffusion is where water actually moves material from high concentration to low concentration. And this is how your body actually moves material from, like, the oxygen in your blood to the cells, because there's more oxygen in the blood, or the carbon dioxide from the cell moves back into the blood because it's higher concentration inside the cell. And it's how we actually spread things out evenly, and it's how oxygen spreads from your lungs through your blood into your cells. Water is also almost a universal solvent, which means it can almost dissolve anything if you give it enough time. And if you take a look at sodium chloride again, where we talked about taking an acid and a base, we could actually make water and salt. Water can actually take this negative end, where most of the electrons are sticking, and pull out the small little chlorine ions. Sodium ions, and then the plus end can go around and start pulling up the larger chlorine. So you can see it wraps the sodium and wraps the chlorine ion. This is a plus and that's a minus. And even in seawater, the salt has been dissolved. This is dissolved salt, like it is salt sugar. If you put this on your tongue, your body can still tell that those ions are still there, and it actually does taste salty. Chemical reactions take place in most critters as liquid water, and universal solvent allows the material to sit in. High specific heat, water loses energy. Takes a lot of heat to change the temperature of water. So if you actually were boiling alcohol or boiling something other than water, it would actually start boiling a lot faster. So water takes a lot of energy to get it to boil. If you take a look at water, has very high specific heat compared to other things that are around. Ammonia, if it was actually on here, has a little higher specific heat than water, but I think that's the only thing that does. It gives very stable climates. The fact that water covers most of the surface. The tropical water can absorb lots of energy and not get too hot, and it can actually transfer that heat up to the poles, actually making the poles seem warmer, and the poles can actually lose the heat without getting too cold, and that water can move into the tropics, keeping the tropics cooler. So it actually stabilizes climates. It also allows people to sweat. When you actually put water on the outside of your body, that water takes the heat away, which cools critters. Clarity of water, light penetration. If water has floating solids inside, or has lots of like plant life, single cell plant life, it actually will judge or change the light penetration. You can see lots of different levels of clarity. Some you can see through, and some actually get kind of translucent, and some even opaque. It's determined with what's called a Secchi disc. Light penetration, low algae content, light goes down quite a bit, but again, it's got to bounce back up, so it really penetrates twice the depth of what you can see for the Secchi disc. If you have algae content, that will absorb some of the light and make it harder to see. What I'm going to try to do now is to show you a website. Wait a second. Okay, what I'm going to show you is a website. You can click this and play with it also. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at water, and they've got clear water, they've got intermediate water where it starts getting a little cloudy, productive water where they're saying there's lots of productivity. They have diastropic water, which is actually has a color of like tea and root beer, which could have a little bit of life, as well as this is usually caused by sediments, and then you can have productivity and diastropic water where you actually have algae and sediments. So let's try the clear water first. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to go up and down. So let's click to start. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the down arrow. You can see the Secchi disc up there in the top left. It's kind of swinging back and forth. And I'm going to start dropping it. And there it is. And it's got that nice white-black pattern to make it easy for us to see it. And you may say it's real easy to see, but it's when it actually gets lower. And again, this is clear water. And what we're trying to do is lower it until we can't see it anymore, and you can see it's getting, maybe it's actually gone. Let's bring it back up a little bit. Okay, so there it is, and we're going to drop it, and you can see with that pattern, because it's got black and light, makes it really easy to see, and I'm hitting the mouse little by little. Looks like I'm at 8.5 meters. Still see it. Still see it. Now the black's a little more visible than the white. And still see it, and it actually looks like it just disappeared. I'm going to go down a little bit more because I just want to. And then we're going to measure it. And it's going to show us the target depth. And we got a little lower than the target depth, so we did a really good job. If we go into this, let's actually take this reading. Okay. Now the thing you notice is the water is a lot different. It's kind of greenish in color, but it's got some brown in there too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start going down. There's the Secchi disc, and you can see it's getting hazy as we go down, and still visible, still visible. Now the dark part is visible. Dark just disappeared. I'm going to take my measure. So it's almost 3 meters, and I'm going to go in. There's my target depth again, and we got a little lower than that, so it looks like I didn't have to do that. So this is how this works, and that's called the clarity of water, determined by a Secchi disc. You can also do it with, you can pull the water in to a light meter and send the light through it, and the reader will actually determine how much light makes it through, and a much smaller body, but I really like the Secchi disc. Okay, I think that's it, and thanks for stopping by, and that was 2B. Bye.